You are tuning into the Wild Folk Podcast. If you love learning and interweaving health, self-growth, and making magic, this is the show for you. Hillary is a certified clinical Ayurvedic practitioner with the eye of a fine artist. Sterling is a PhD candidate in metaphysics and a lover of living life. She runs a personalized magical methods mentorship program for when you are ready to deepen into the magic that you are with one-on-one guidance. She also periodically offers personal divination counseling services, including astrology and tarot. To me, that's the unifying factor of everything that I can really info dump about, is that there are these stories that humans, for longer than time immemorable, and across all cultures and all languages and all socioeconomic classes, tell the same stories. And I love that. I love looking at things like the way that you just so concisely put, what is the root of this type of yoga that we do now here in the West, and where does it come from? Because that has its root in the Vedas, just like Ayurvedic medicine does. It has its root in the Vedas. And the Vedas are this amazingly deep, broad, expansive set of mythology and folklore that is still very much alive. It's still very much living and breathing. The culture that has its roots in those stories has been telling those stories consistently for a very long time, which is totally different than a lot of the stories that inform our Western culture right now, like Hellenistic, Greco-Roman, Norse, or Celtic storylines and folklore, because those have all been stratified and systematically disintegrated by newer story constructs that sort of co-opt and steal the archetypes. And I'm referring specifically to Christianity there, in case anyone missed that, monotheism in general, but we'll gloss over that for the time being. So I like making all the comparisons and understanding that these stories that are told in the Vedas, that are the root of this medicine that you study, and the yoga that everyone's doing, and all these really great, super heady tattoos of the chakras and Om Shanti Shanti. It's like, okay, what's the story behind that? Oh, wait, the story behind that is actually this super epic cosmic battle of these space god aliens that came to Earth and fought over their progeny, which is us, that have like this Earth and space DNA mixed. Interesting, because that's the exact same story that the Aborigines tell, and the Dogon tribe in Central Africa, and the Norse pagans who borrowed Freya from a different pantheon because they thought she was a cool goddess. They also came from space and fought a war over their half-human hybrid children. So, like, I mean, if you want to listen to what I have to say, it's going to sound a lot like that periodically.
Well, that's an incredible characteristic that you have, your ability to pull all of this wisdom and magic and understanding and like bring it together in a comprehensive way for people to understand and be like, wow, there are these main themes pulsing through everything, and you can pull them from any culture that you go to.
Yep, that's true. That was such a really great way to concisely rephrase that. That's a really beautiful skill that you have. That's another reason that you should listen to Hillary. She has this really great skill that she just demonstrated, which made me feel very heard and understood. And also, for anyone that didn't follow my huge verbal explosion, she just summed it up for you. So, like, you don't have to rewind the whole podcast, just listen to what she just said, and like, that's that brought together perfectly. So thank you, I feel heard. And also, yeah, that is exactly it, is that you can decide to look for the core of the story anywhere, and it's the same story. We're all telling the same story. We're all living the same story. We're all writing the story, which is why it is so important to understand and pay attention to the stories that you're telling yourself, because you are making that shit up. Not in a bad way, not like it's not real, it's very real, and you are making it up. So like, decide to make a good story. That's very much what I've been focusing on. And that's very so important to me to like really understand what being neurodivergent means, because it actually gives me this tool set to be able to see like, oh, when I've had like really intense meltdowns or like manic episodes or other things that happen because of the way that my brain is wired and the way that our culture is not constructed for a brain wired like mine, I'm able to process that information differently. And instead of just telling myself that I'm a failure and I'm flaky and I'm crazy and I'm chaotic, I can look at it from a different perspective and think, okay, well, these were my red flags that I was approaching meltdown, and I'm familiar with those because they've happened before. And these were the instances where I took risks that were probably not very wise because I hadn't taken the time to plan. And these are the ways in which I could work on structuring systems for myself so that I can feel more successful and be able to prioritize what I actually want my life to be like better. So my personal focus these days is very much in constructing systems to optimize how I am able to operate my mind so that I can achieve the things that I want to achieve. And I want to help as many people as possible do that, achieve the things they want to achieve, and figure out what those things are, and realize that they are the ones authoring their own story. And everyone needs to wake the fuck up, because our planet is literally on fire and we don't get another one. This is it, you guys. This is it. Wake up. Okay? Thanks.
Okay, mic drop.
Yeah, don't worry, it's not on.
Yes. Oh my God, this is so good. Yes.
I know. Oh my God, I would totally listen to our podcast.
Well, you have this genius mind, and it's really you need a platform to share. And so I'm really glad that we're doing this and that you have this platform and that it is going to expand and ripple out, and the people that need to hear you and who feel the same way as you and who have minds that operate like yours are going to be able to take a very deep breath when they hear you, because yeah, I think we need each other, and there's more people having similar experiences that don't fit the typical mold that we tend to see. So
yeah, it is a very specific mold. Thank you. I feel so heard and so understood, and that was beautiful, and I love you. And it is a very typical mold that people have to fit in to be successful in our society. And specifically, I don't know if you're watching or listening or if you know us or if you don't know us, but Hillary and I both grew up in Northern California, very near each other, but in completely different cultures, which is something interesting that happens in Northern California that you may not be aware of if the only California you have a concept of is what you see on TV, because where we come from is not that California. And so Hillary grew up adjacent to probably one of the most affluent places in North America. And I grew up just over the hills a little bit north of there in one of the most impoverished places in the United States. So we were literally raised 45 minutes apart. And I went to the 13th lowest performing high school in California. And Hillary went to the kind of school where it was like normal to go to a four-year university after high school. And then we didn't know each other then. We actually have like this really amazing core group of people who all grew up, within 40 miles as the crow flies, and none of us knew each other until we were adults. But it's interesting because this place where we grew up is this juxtaposition of ocean and land and rural and urban and affluent and impoverished, and it can all be described like that. It's wine country. It's super rich, bougie bitches, wine tasting, and first generation immigrants that came over the border from Central America who are picking the grapes right outside. Like that is a really good encapsulation of what Northern California is like. And I don't remember why I started talking about Northern California. So
you're talking about like the way that we met and how we are like existing in these totally opposite realities. beforehand and why our information comes together in a good way.
Yeah, what she said. Oh, look at that, Wonder Team! Imagine if I was doing a podcast by myself.
We would go on so many adventures.
I said Wonder Team.
Everyone would be lost. Everyone would be like, let's follow her. She looks like she's going on a really interesting path. And I would be like, where the fuck are we?
Why did we come here again?
Oh yeah, okay, so I'll talk actually a little bit more about less about my brain and more about what I've actually done, so people can get an idea for that maybe, because so Hillary and I grew up very close to each other but didn't know each other. And then I went to college also in Northern California, near where we grew up but not that close, is also its own little weird bubble. It's like the most PhDs per capita of anywhere in the US, but then all farmland for miles and miles in every direction outside of this place. It's a weird little bubble. And I made the best friends I had ever in my life. They were so different than the people I grew up with because I was born and raised in the same very, very small town of 1,000 people who mostly either rode horses or did meth, like, if we're being honest. And usually one or the other, not typically both. And so then I went to university and I met the most amazing people ever. And one of them was Hillary's brother. And so he's one of my best friends from college, but I never met Hillary. I didn't meet her. I spent every day, I lived 3 houses away from this man. I spent every day with him for a large portion of time. And then, school ended and I went on a crazy road trip with another one of our mutual amazing friends who also grew up in the same place and didn't know either of us when we were kids. And shout out to Nell. And totally had an intensely manic episode because she and I we won a grant to make a documentary of our road trip of West Coast festival culture. And so, I mean, just imagine having completed a university degree in 4 years and then going on an adventure like that. I burnt out so hard, so hardcore. And I ran away to the mountains. And this is something that I've also learned about my brain, is that I have these super epic manic episodes and flights of fancy and like all this explosive experience followed by months on end where I need to be a complete hermit and not talk to anyone and basically fall off the face of the earth. And so I did that in the Colorado Rockies. And then a lot of other things happened. I ran away with the circus. I was a rock star in Europe, headlining stages, burnt out again, obviously, after, backpacking around Asia and Europe, performing with the circus and having no money. And there's a lot of ebb and flow like that, where I felt really, really successful for months on end and then basically hit rock bottom and got super clinically depressed for months on end because I didn't know how to moderate my brain. Many years after this, I don't even know how many, probably 6 or 7 years after running away with the circus, I was in a tiny town, again, in Northern California, in a very strange and specifically unique place that was a large part of the gold rush and is now a large part of the green rush involving farming cannabis.
Nevada City.
In the mountains. Hey, Nevada City. And I was at this place called Elixart, which is what it sounds like. It is exactly what it sounds like. And I had drank a lot of cacao, like more than one person should drink.
Because
on
Friday nights, Friday night full moon, they have bottomless cacao. And someone who was there that I was talking to, that I don't think I'd ever met before, I said, I want to go dance under the full moon. And she said, I heard about a party, follow me. So I followed this person into the darkness of the night, up into the mountains.
Into the woods.
And into the woods in the dark. And sure enough, we got to this house and there was lots of music and it was really good music. So I was like, all right, cool. And I just walked into this house.
You are listening to a bite-sized excerpt of the podcast. Perfect snack time for your mind. For the full episode, subscribe and join the tribe. This episode segment is brought to you by the Witchy Wellness Weekly subscription. That's bit.ly/Witchy Wellness Weekly.